And Coach Ron Rivera joins us right now, head coach of the Washington Redskins. Welcome to the Junkies, Coach.
Good morning.
Good morning, guys. How you doing?
We were just talking about Pebble. We were just talking about your house in Pebble. I was out there last October. It's just heaven. And I'm supposed to go again in November.
Yeah, are you a golfer?
What a life. What a life. You know, I love the game. I really do. I'm not great at it. But I do enjoy being out there. Yeah, I grew up in that area. You know, my parents are still out there, thank goodness. My brothers are there and their families, and so you know, it's obviously a place we love going back to and spending time.
But you know what, Redskins fans, they're happy you're not great at golf. That means you're putting in all the hours you need to at your job. You shouldn't be great at golf, Coach
Spurrier was
Rivera.
too good at golf.
Right.
Well, yeah, I will say though, you know, it is kind of neat to be out here though. This is a great area. I mean, it's different. Obviously, I was down in the southeast with Carolina for such a long time. But being up in this area is a little different. I mean, it's really frenetic. Unfortunately, now it's not. Unfortunately, but you know, my first month and a half was very interesting, and just trying to getting a feel for the lay of the land. It was an interesting introduction.
Yeah, it stinks that this is the introduction, but you'll grow to love it, I think. Let's talk about your draft here for a moment. I know you've talked to a lot of people about it, but one of the segments we kicked off the show was that a bunch of college coaches, I don't know if you saw the article, but I
heard about that.
120 college coaches or something that were polled said that you got two of the biggest steals in the draft in Antonio Gibson and
Gandy-Golden.
Gandy-Golden, yeah, the receiver there from Liberty.
Yes.
So how do you feel about that?
Well, I feel good about them because first of all, they were both there, and we were able to draft them. And the thing that we really liked about who they are is their ability to play different spots. You know, one of the things that we talk about is having position flex. You don't want to just take a guy and pigeonhole him because it limits his opportunities to get on the field. So we want to see if we can get those guys out there as quickly as possible. And both guys have an opportunity to help us in more ways than one. So we're pretty excited about both those guys being part of our football team.
So, Coach, we were talking about this. Were those two guys, were they the next guy up on your chart, on your value chart, or the next guys up at the position that you thought you needed to draft?
Or did you target them specifically?
Yeah. How'd that work?
Well, no. And the way we do it, really, and it's the way a lot of teams do it, is when you get close to that section, of the draft, and you're usually about 5 out, you have 3, 4, 5 guys that you're looking at. Mm-hmm. And you start talking about those 3 or 4 guys. And if somebody gets taken off, and that guy's gone off your list. But when you're sitting there and you're looking at them, you're going, okay, hey, we got these guys. They're even. They're equal. Which of these guys do we want to take now? That's probably the best thing to be in, because now you can pick for need because they're even in terms of their value. The other thing that you do, though, is if they're close, then you can go ahead and take them. But we didn't look to try and take somebody that fit us,
right.
Despite what it was, what the chart said. So we stayed true to the rankings, and those guys were perfect, with the exception of probably the one guy that we feel really good about, is Sadiq. He's a young man that that had a situation that dropped him in the draft, but he's a guy that can we believe can come out and help us. So we're pretty excited about what we accomplished going forward, going through the draft.
We're joined by Washington Redskins head coach Ron Rivera. Really cool moment while you were drafting Chase Young at number 2 overall. You got on the phone with his dad and let him deliver the news that he was going to be a Washington Redskin. Is that something you did while you were in Carolina, or is that something that just kind of organically happened with Chase?
That was something that organically happened. I was, it's one of those things that, in this situation, this set of circumstances, and really just kind of seeing how things were, it's just one of the things that hit me that, I think it would be really cool for his dad to be able to turn to him and say, son, you're going to be a Washington Redskin, because they grew up Redskin fans. They're from this area. I think to be able to have him be part of our organization, part of our team, and to have his dad tell him, I thought would really mean something to the family.
What was it like for you back in your playing days when you were drafted? Can you tell us what it was like for you on draft day?
Well, back in the day, the draft went, it just went. It wasn't structured like it was like this. So you waited and waited and waited. Back then it started early in the morning, and So he was waiting. So when you get picked, you're fired up, you're excited, but at the same time, oh, thank God the wait is over. I was the 44th player taken overall, so I had a few hours waiting. Back then, I think each round was 15 minutes or something like that. So, the first round was like 15, I think, and so it took forever. I mean, it was like watching paint dry.
Coach, can you give us an idea? Obviously, this is a much different year because you had to do it from your house, but can you give us an idea of what that was like? Who was at your house with you, if anybody? How many different people were you talking to on Zoom or whatever platform you were using? What was that all about?
Well, I don't know if you guys got a chance to see our setup, but we tweeted it out. We did a little special shout out to the Maryland National Guard, who's doing a COVID-19 testing site at FedEx Field for USAA. So we did a little shout out and we put it out there. And so if you looked at the way it was set up, I had an 80-inch monitor, which is where our big board was on electronically. Then I had a desktop, I had a laptop, and then I had another monitor, a 60-inch screen that was doing the actual highlights for the players as we were going through it if we had to watch tape. Kyle Smith and I had a direct line. We had Rob Rogers, our cap guy, had a direct line. Jeff Scott, one of our scouts, had a direct line with us. And then we had a couple other guys that were on our director of college scouting, Tim Gribble,
right,
and Brian Zekas, one of our pro scouts. Those guys were handling the timing for each pick. So we were pretty well connected, constantly talking about what was happening, and when guys were coming off the board, trying to project what our grouping of players would be as we were going through the draft. So it worked very well. I mean, we did a lot of work. Our IT guys, deserve a big shout out because of the way they handled things for us. We had actually 4 tests as we went through it.
Wow.
2 that the league ran, and then we ran 2 of our own, 2 mocks, where we did a mock draft through the first few rounds, and then we did a mock draft all the way up to the 4th round, complete with trades, trading up, trading back, stuff like that, just so we could see how it works, how the communications would be, and we thought it went pretty well. So we were pretty excited and pretty prepared going into the draft.
Coach, I thought you guys killed it. Doesn't matter what some dumb radio guy thinks, but I think you universally, people really like what you did. I know me, just being a lifelong Redskins fan, I was like, wow, this draft really makes sense. Like every pick I get, I might have done something different, but I certainly understand your rationale for all of these picks. The one debate that people did have, though, afterwards was about the tight end position. Were you ever seriously close to taking one? And, I was telling these boys, I love Logan Thomas. That guy's a great athlete. I think you guys can, just because he hadn't done anything yet, that doesn't mean anything. I think you guys could make something of him. But what was sort of your thinking with that position?
Well, what was interesting was we got into those groupings twice, and both times, actually one time, the tight end that we were looking at that was part of that grouping got taken like 2 or 3 picks before us.
Right.
So that was a little disappointing. But, we were still able to get a very good player. So, that's the fortunes of the board, the way you set it up, because if that guy's in your grouping and you lose him, you feel good about it because you still have the other guys. And that's the thing that you look at is that, again, we felt good about the guys we got. We really do think we addressed a lot of our needs. We were fortunate to get Moss as a preferred free agent once we got into it. So, it's not like we didn't bring in a quality young tight end to compete. And again, it's one of those things. He was coming off the foot surgery. So again, I think that people just got to understand it. Again, when that happens to a player coming out of the combine, he is going to drop. So somewhere along the line, he could have been taken earlier, but he didn't. So we just feel that was a value signing for us. So this is a kid that could have been a draft pick if he hadn't had to have the foot surgery.
Right.
Coach Rivera, I want to go back a year. You, of course, scouted quarterbacks a year ago. I'm wondering what you thought of Haskins last year, and then, of course, the Panthers faced the Redskins this year. Talk about your quarterback, Dwayne Haskins.
Well, the thing I liked about Dwayne when he was coming out was he had a live arm. He really did. He threw a good ball and a fairly accurate ball, for what they did. He ran that offense with a lot of confidence. Then fast forward, get an opportunity to prepare for him and watch him. I was impressed. But the thing that impressed me the most when you go back and look at it and I've talked about this, is how he handled the Detroit game. You know, when they had to score and you had to score twice, once to tie and once to win, and in both those situations, you could see his confidence. You could see him play and react to what was going on. He played fast, and he was ahead of the defense, and I kept thinking to myself, wow, that's pretty impressive. So then we play. Obviously, I get let go, and then I start talking to Mr. Snyder, and one of the things that he asked me is, hey, why don't you take a look at our roster? So I got a bunch of game film. In fact, I got all the game film, and I just started watching Dwayne. And the more I watched him, the more intrigued I was by him. And so far, you know, getting to meet with him, getting to talk with him, watching him in the Zoom meetings, you know, I've been impressed. I really have. I think, you know, this is a young man that, again, given an opportunity to grow, you know, I think he can. The thing that excites me, too, is, you know, Scott Turner's our offensive coordinator. Scott was with me when I first got to Carolina. He was part of the group of guys that had the plan for Cam Newton. And one of the things Scotty and I talked about was a plan to develop Dwayne. And that's the thing that we wanted to make sure we understood was that, you know, we're going to treat him as if we're starting all over, which we are, because it's a new offense with this young man. And what do we have to do to give him an opportunity, to give him a chance to succeed and be successful? So, again, it was about having a plan. Then Kenny Zampese was our quarterback coach. We brought in, you know, he was at Cleveland when they first had Baker Mayfield, and he talked about a plan. So that, to me, was what you have to have. You have to have this plan to be ready to go forward. And again, that's what we wanted to do, and that's what we want to do going forward with Dwayne, is give him every opportunity to grow, create some competition. We went out and got Kyle, and, you know, and we'll see what happens and how it all, you know, unfolds, and hopefully when things settle back to some sort of normalcy, and see what happens.
Hey, Coach, I know you got to run. You can answer this yes, no. Was there any real consideration of drafting Tua?
No, not real Tua. I mean, gotcha. You know, Tua, and believe me, we had Tua ranked, you know, right where he got picked. We really did. Very impressed by who he is as a football player. A very courageous player, and just a guy that, you know, has got a good game. But we just feel, based on the things that we saw from Dwayne, you know, in the last quarter of the season, as here's a guy that potentially can grow, and so we'll see. I mean, I feel good enough about him that I'm willing to take that chance, take that opportunity. Feel good about who Kyle is, and you know, you never know with Alex either. You know, we'll just have to wait and see what happens. But at the end of the day, you know, we've got a couple of young guys that we just got to see if they can grow into football players for us.
Coach, thank you so much. We got to run. You got to run. Let's do this again. Thank you.
All right, guys. Love to. You guys be cool now.
Yep.
All right,
bro.
you too, buddy. Thank you.
All right. Stay safe, guys.
Thanks,
you
man.
too.